Okay. Well, thank you for agreeing to this interview firstly. You are here in London for the 2023 London Jazz Festival.
Yes.
You're performing a tribute to Pharoh Sanders tomorrow night at
Yes.
the Milton Court Concert Hall.
Yes,
You played with Pharoh Sanders for the best part of 40 years.
that is correct.
What influence did Pharoh have on you personally and musically?
Well, musically, he inherited the, we might say, the power and concept of John Coltrane, who was a great saxophonist. We would say one of the geniuses of jazz for his time, right? Who had gone beyond conventional jazz and had the courage to explore what was beyond even himself, right? And so Pharoh worked with John and became very close to him and recorded with him, so we have evidence of that. And we're talking about quite the stretch away from ordinary conventional jazz. So these guys had gone way beyond jazz and created a level of jazz which is presently of great use to all of us. In other words, they had inspired what I call transcendent jazz, way beyond anything you can learn, way beyond anything except from the soul level of the human spirit.
Do you think that you yourself play transcendent jazz?
Oh, absolutely.
And how much of that is influenced by Pharoh's presence in your life?
Some, because I started out as a 2-year-old drummer. My father was a drummer who played as a teenager in New York City. He played in orchestra, so I had the gene for it. So it was easy for me when the time came, after I had gone through my military, let's say, occupation of being a certain kind of communication and intelligence specialist. Then it became obvious that I had an opportunity to get into the Army Band. And that's when I started to teach myself to play guitar and jazz guitar at that. Now, I'm not going to say I did any good with any of my training or that sort of thing, but it all began in that particular moment.
I find it interesting that your position in the army initially was as a communications expert, and in many ways what you're going to be doing tomorrow night is communicating, and rather expertly at that.
This is quite important,
Yeah.
right, and relevant to our cause, right? Yes, and
Do you the transcendent and the evolution that Pharoh and Coltrane had on jazz, as you know, do you think that kind of that version of jazz, let's say, do you think that's still around?
I would say so, especially when it comes to the fact that all of us are evolving as spirits. So the spiritual is very important to each and every one of us differently. And so when I go back to the days with Pharoh, it was free jazz, free music, but it was always with a spiritual, let's say, a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and it was always with a heart feeling, as if we were praying, as if we were playing out of devotion to something beyond ourselves, like to the divine in us. You see, and it gave the music we played a certain kind of communicational reality with people who were also on the spiritual path. They felt the devotion that was coming through our music.
That connection on that realm, as it were, do you think that's only accessible through the medium of jazz musically in those terms?
No. I think the transcendent realization at the spiritual level is our potential as human beings, our potential. But very few humans are materially aligned with the need for that state of consciousness. So you often have to go through the yogic spiritual channels to get to a place where that concept becomes much more prevailing. That is the transcendent of body, thought, self, mind, and world. All of these things are part of the realization of transcendence. It's not just transcending something, it's really the transcendence of everything that we are and know materially. What's left then is the naked, raw purity of the enlightenment of the soul, which is most important. See?
In the Master Dance, the authorized biography of your life, you are quoted talking about spirits with a capital S in a way of being as a governing body. Could you unpack that?
Yes, well, let us say that the material existence that we know, what we perceive as matter or the universe, is created of something. And that would be something prior to the material stage. We have to say it came from somewhere, right, to be what it is.
Okay.
And coincidentally, it actually dissolves. The material dissolves back into its origin, as we would say, to be relative to light. And we're talking about clear light, awareness, transcendence of the material completely. But we are born of that. We are light. Without light, we wouldn't be. Without light, in a manner of speaking, the earth would not be. The earth is dependent upon the sun, which is a form of light, but even the sun is dependent upon light, otherwise it would not be. See, so there's a theory, of course. So we are potentially, we are spirit soul beings with the potential of complete enlightenment. Once we realize that enlightenment is what we need for our happiness.
So do you believe that effectively that spirit soul beings, so effectively
That's
that
everyone.
so is
But
something
unconscious.
is something inhabiting my physical person at the moment?
It gives you the ability to feel that you are part of the universe. It's like,
Which is illusionary.
well, yes, it is illusionary, but it's also magnificent. It's fantastically illusionary.
Yeah.
It's the most profound illusion of all illusions, is that we are part and parcel of the universe of time, space, energy, and matter, as Einstein was calling these aspects or dimensions of awareness. Right? The body, the feelings, the memory, the emotions, the thought, memories, dreams, all of this is coming out of what? And when we go to sleep, we're unconscious. And what does that mean? We're not there. We don't remember. That means that what we're perceiving has a limit and a function relative to what we're not perceiving.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay?
So, and in terms of, do you think that once the spirit departs from this host, that is the physical body,
Yes.
Where does it go?
It goes to where it's supposed to go. It goes where
Do
it's
you feel it-
designated to go.
Or
And
back,
that means, hold on, there are different
Yeah, sorry,
traditions
sorry.
now. I come from a spiritualist background, and they are generally Christians who believe in the spirits and in the demons, just as Jesus did. He was a demon killer. And so we're talking about that continuum, as I know it, is that we are born to be able to kill demons. Not kill them, but chase them, cause them to depart a human body, which is what my elders would do when children who were possessed were brought to them. They would have to perform something, a mantra or something, and do something around them to demagnetize or polarize the spirit from that child, that entity, like almost like magnetically take it out of them.
Yeah.
Have to draw it to themselves, take it out, and then they have to cleanse themselves from the darkness that they accumulated, let us say. So I'm raised in that from the beginning. And my music, which started when I was very young, my musical evolution enabled me to be able to bring that to my music and the intelligence to my friends concerning that level as much as they were curious. Pharoh was spiritually very curious. I'm also an astrologer, a professional astrologer. So there's something which he had a tremendous openness for, and so we discussed those things quite, let's say, regularly. And the same with John Coltrane, also interested in the planets. And I think we have a right to be interested in our environment as a cosmic center. And so this is part of that. And it, again, has to go back to what I was given as a child to be aware of, to share with other people.
do you still feel?
Can I interrupt 1 second?
Yes, you may.
There's a breakfast
Get some
buy-out
waters.
for tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, man.
So give it to,
Oh, yes, to Nancy. Okay, appreciate that.
Do you still feel Pharoh's spirit in?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, we were very close. Pharoh was a brother to me. I was a brother to him. That means on one level he was close to my mother, and on another level I was close to him and his family and his home in Little Rock, Arkansas. So we were really like, soulfully connected by the music and by our understanding and circumstance. So yeah, no, this is very important that I could meet him when I was young, and he attached to me right away. You know, as I say, the introduction that I had to Pharoh was through Calvin Hill, the bass player, who was working with McCoy Tyner and Elvin and other people, and Rashid. And he said to me when he heard me play, he says, "Who are you?" And I told him, it's Tziji Munoz, and he says, "Pharoh's got to hear you play. Meet me at the Vanguard tonight at 7 o'clock. You have to. He has to hear you play." And I was shocked because I didn't know Pharoh. I heard of him, and the people he was playing with as a jazz, great, but I didn't know much more about him than that. And then all of a sudden, Calvin shows up, and I'm meeting with Pharoh at 7 o'clock at the Vanguard for the first time, and this was quite a catastrophe by my use. It was catastrophic. And he said to me, he said, you're the guitar player? I said, yes, I'm the guitar player. He says, well, where's your guitar? I said, I didn't know I was going to be playing with you. I don't have a guitar to play with you. There was no appointment to that. And then he said, well, then go home, go to Brooklyn, get your guitar and be back here so I can hear you. I said, all right. I went, I zipped down to Brooklyn, got back to Manhattan, got into the club, and he said, the club was filling in now. The audience was coming in, and he said, let's go up to the piano. So we went up to the piano, and he said, yeah, take your guitar out. And I took my guitar out, and he played some chords, and he said, what do you hear on this? Tell me what you hear. Play me something about what I'm playing. And I played him what I imagined I was hearing, and he looked at me and he said, you're with me. You play with me. End the story. You're in my band.
Yes, yeah.
His words.
And let's go back to the journey up until that point. So when did you discover music, and when did you realize that you wanted to play it?
Well, as a child.
Yeah.
I discovered it as a result of a genetic connection with my ancestry. My father was a drummer. He was working in New York City. And I was a child that was just drawn to the rhythms. And I said, always am, always will be, like many of us are, out of necessity, not just out of, let's say, habit particularly, or profession, but out of necessity. We're just rhythmic beings. The heart is the generator of all our pulses and brain waves. So we are, vibrational beings, and we have to deal with rhythm, breathing. Inhaling, exhaling. I mean, the universe, in terms of living beings, is all about that. Right? Yeah. And so, the early part of my life then led me to, let's say, a very tragic mishap. When I was 5 years old, I was accidentally pushed through a window, and as a result, I had severed my artery, cut. See it, right? And I also got caught here, not a slash here. You see, so we're talking about an injury that I've been playing with all of my life. And the pain was really extraordinary up until about 2017, when it just disappeared.
Really?
It just I said, wow, my nerve damage disappeared as pain.
Do you think up until 2017 that you had, and still do in many ways, play the guitar in a, let's say, unconventional or different way because of that injury?
I would have to say yes, because it was very painful for me to chord all my life. Yeah. Most of my records, you don't hear me chording. And that's because I was handicapped, and it hurt like hell to chord. And I played with Pharoh sometimes with chords, and he would tell me, he said, I know it's hard on you. He said, it'll be just a little bit of chording to see you behind the melody. And I said, I can do that, and I'd play it. And then he let me resume my playing, my what is that, line playing as such, playing lines instead of chords.
I was wondering if we could go into your time in the military. We were discussing off camera what sounded like a hugely influential event in your life.
Yes.
If you could unpack that.
Well, the hugely influential event was when I was in jump school. And I love the idea of flying. I mean, all of us have as children, we love to jump and, feel free. So I wound up in jump school. And during my first few jumps, which are, the most treacherous for many people, because it's the beginning with the experience of jumping out of an airplane and into the air and going through the motions of releasing your parachute and so on. And so in this one at the very, very beginning of my jump experience, we had a jump that seemed to be plagued by strong winds. And I jumped out, friends jumped out, I'm not sure from the same plane, because we went up in some kind of formation with other aircrafts, because it's probably a big jump, a major jump. And our chutes became entangled by the wind, and we were caught up in that, and we were commanded by the people on the ground to release our reserve parachutes, since we were in this particular bind, right, coming down at 22 feet per second, and every second seemed like an hour. And I was upside down. I wound up upside down with his chute, his cords. I thought I deserved it. Pull me down, I'm coming down head first.
How vivid is that memory for you?
As this.
Yes, yeah.
More than this. But we were commanded to, he was commanded to pull his reserve chute.
Yeah.
Mine was partly open, his was collapsed already, and he failed to open his chute, and I heard him hit the ground.
I'm sorry.
Next.
In the in your time in the military, you played in the military band.
Oh yes.
Is that really where you honed your
Well,
your ability for playing in front of crowds and in that
Yes.
environment?
We have to make that jump, because I was 4 years a commando, airborne ranger, communications specialist, and that was a great service. I'm still jumping, but then that came to a close by accident. How did it come to a close by accident? I ran into somebody when I was walking down the street in Fayetteville, North Carolina, with my guitar case, which I usually had a guitar with me. And another person comes up with his guitar case, and he says, "I'm sure that's not a machine gun in there, troop." And I say, "You're right about that. There's no gun in my case." And we met. He says, "Let's go over to my trailer. We're not far from my trailer. It's down the road here." And we walked over. We went, sat down in front of his trailer, and he took out his guitar, and I took out my guitar, and we started fiddling. And I was a beginner, a real baby at it. And he said, "I can tell you are a beginner." He said, "But you have more feeling than I do. You got some feeling." And then he said, "How would you like to be in the Army band?" And I didn't believe him. I acted at first like I didn't hear it. Like I didn't want to hear that, because it sounded ridiculous to me. And then he asked again, "How would you like to be in the Army band?" And I took it seriously. I said, "What do you mean? I can't play guitar." He said, "With your feeling, I think you can teach yourself guitar. Get a book on the chords, and we can use you as the chord player for the stage band, because we requisitioned Third Army to get somebody, a piano player or a guitar player, and we haven't gotten it yet for years. You're the man."
Do you think feeling is more important than technique then as a musician?
In a way, I think it's good to have meaningful expression. And so feeling can sometimes be the source of meaningful expression. So you mean what, or if you have pain in you, if you have sorrow in you, you want to play with that from that. Even though that's not like requiring a lot of technique, but technique comes with your exposure to one or another system that helps you to develop that technique. But emotion's got to come from you, right? You got to add that. You can add it. And a lot of musicians get loaded to get to that emotional level, right? And they feel like, emotional, right? Sad. Drinking opens up people to dark experiences, bad news, and so on, and the tragic, and so, they play from that. So I was playing emotionally on the drums from an early age, right? And I was also very fortunate that I did doo-wop singing, right? You read about that?
No, doo-wops.
Yeah, it was a doo-wop, street corner singing with a
really?
band. Yeah, and I went to California. We were in California, related to the Beach Boys. Indirectly, our manager and their manager were buddies.
Okay.
So he was managing Beach Boys, which everyone loved, that kind of music, and this is early.
Yeah.
And we were doing kind of like a pseudo doo-wop and high-lows jazz.
Okay.
More complex, and people didn't care for that. So they were the winners. But I did have that experience in California, and I was maybe 13 or 14, something like that, and it was a great experience.
Do you think that environment of musical creativity and excitement is gone?
In my case?
Generally in America?
It might be, but not in my case.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have the fever right now.
Yes, yeah.
You make me think about it. I feel like playing, Yeah, so it's with me. I'm not sure. It's very possible. I would like for you to qualify that a little more, for me to maybe respond to. Why are you saying that?
I don't know, I was just generally intrigued.
Well, I think that it can always get better.
Yeah.
I think so. There are always those musicians who want to be showmen and, entertainers, so to speak, which is, I think, a good step for the world. And we have good players and whatever. But then there are those musicians who feel they have a spiritual mission that's a little deeper.
Do you consider yourself to be a psychic musician?
I think psychically, musically, I can say that. I think so. I believe that.
Musically, you can say that.
Musically, I
Yes,
would
okay.
say that, yeah. Other kind of psychic things, I'd have to say, well, we'd have to qualify that a little bit more. But I do come from psychics.
As in, let's unpack that. So, do you almost know what you're going to play before you play it? Is that what kind of that terminology is implying?
In some cases, I know what I feel I want to play.
Okay.
And then playing it becomes an issue of my contact with the instrument. Sometimes I hear it before. I hear melodies as a composer. I hear melodies, and that's a form of psychic resonance with the unconscious, because the unconscious has a very significant part in this kind of higher creative work. You have to feel it, you have to know it, you have to sense it, and sometimes you have to know it before it happens. Okay. That is true.
You created the Illumination Society in 1980. What is the Illumination Society?
Well, the Illumination Society was a concept I put together for people who I felt could benefit from reading my books.
Yeah.
I have about 60 or so books. You may have researched it. I have all kinds of crazy metaphysical books that have to do with my perception of life, the world, and music.
Why did you feel compelled to share this with other people?
Because a lot of people were coming up to me, asking me when I played, what do you mean by that? We heard this piece. What does that mean? We got these feelings. What does it mean? So I had to offer something in response to them that would help them to close the gap between their curiosity in terms of what they were hearing, and then reading the book so that they know what I'm feeling in the writings to close the gap for them.
These metaphysical ideas, do you think they're more easily communicated through the words that you write in your books or through your music?
It can be, yes, of course. We have language to close the gap between ourselves and other beings. Right, we have to, you take astrologic science, which a lot of people don't believe in. people feel it. We are connected to the moon. We resonate with the moon and the planets. You don't have to be an astrologer to know. You love to look into space. We love the sun. Right? So we're intimately connected because we're part of the same energy field, same solar system energy field. And so to be alienated from that doesn't make any sense, and we can't be alienated from it. We are part of it. We are Saturn from a certain point of view, right? And in astrology, you are Saturn by virtue of a certain kind of influence.
Saturn.
Saturn, yeah, the planet Saturn, right? We call it the one that sits on you. Saturn is a sitter, right? That means it's bad news, relatively speaking. Saturn implies building and creating, let's say, structures that sometimes people do not feel they're ready for such structures, like school and academic development beyond a certain point. And I've noticed as an astrologer that when I look at charts and I see people having a hard time with certain things, I see indications that they're having problems with being sit on. Saturnine, right? Forcing you to build. And that's the equation I would make as far as that goes.
With these, with your astrological mindset, do you feel that you, for example, I would say that I don't believe in astrology. Do you think that
There's nothing to believe in. You don't believe in it. Nobody believes in it, really. I don't believe in it. I know it. See, I don't believe in it, right? You don't believe in love, really. I mean, you got to know it. You got to feel it. You have to have it, and that's psychic. But it's the same thing with the planetary influence. You have to have the resonance, psychic resonance with it, or the intelligence to realize that Mercury has to do with the mind, and sometimes when it's configured with other planets in a negative way, according to the tradition, the mind is not as graceful in its determinations. So something to perceive in a sense, but to know by experience.
This resonance that you have, would you say that you therefore see a bigger picture, if you allow that question?
We can say that, but people who are skeptical come to me and they spend time with me, they lose the skepticism without me telling them anything. You see, because it's not what's the word? It's not out of the body, in a sense. It's a psychic, intellectual sense.
Yes.
See, and not everybody's ready for it, not everybody's interested in it. But when those people are interested in it, that is to say they are opening their minds, they start to perceive what the fact of it is that we're in a solar system that is a family of planets. And there's no escaping it, even though you can say, well, I don't feel it, so I don't know it, so I don't believe it. Well, sometimes you can be knocked over the head by circumstance, and then if you go back through astrology, you say, oh my goodness, that was a bad day according to this system. I wouldn't be telling you that if I didn't have my mind blown.
Yeah. I see dinner is here, so I'm going to...
No, just proceed to dinner. It's waiting.
Okay.
Let me just borrow them for a minute.
Yeah, remember, I started out with a doo-wop. And, we wound up in California. And so we did shows. Not significant shows, but I was open to it. It was no difference. It was just, we sang together and we loved it, and there was no self-consciousness about it. Mm-hmm. So I've been open to demonstrating music for a very long time and loving it. So I'm not surprised. I found Pharoh and my openness to all kinds of things and enabled he and I to get along just fine. Right? Whereas he wasn't, very popular in some ways, in some circles, because he was considered a heavy, scary cat. But he's a sweet cake in a sense. I don't mean to rub that, the wrong way. No, we were good friends. We respected each other. We loved each other's interests. And he really loved us playing together and wanted me to play even more and more and more, but I couldn't. I had to disappoint him. I said I had too many things to write, and he said, just write music. And I told him, I need to write metaphysics.
Being so intimately involved in that scene for so long, where do you think the jazz scene is going? Where is its future?
Well, I don't listen to jazz, personally. That might be telltale.
Okay.
There's not much that I listen to.
Is that because there's none that is exciting to you, appealing to you, or have you just
My
kind of...
music is great for me. And music like my music, I'm saying, is great. So, in other words, what's best for me, well, it's not that it's best, but what I would prefer to hear are people who are getting beyond themselves, right? Getting beyond training, getting beyond their methods as such, and getting into more spontaneous, intuitive, creative exploration relative to the heart and soul. That much is the body.
Final question. In the Master Dance, Nancy, your wife, she wrote that even now that you have numerous books, musical releases, and videos that may offer some insight into who you are, as a creative intelligence, you remain impossible to describe. How would you describe yourself?
I have no idea. No, a loving person, basically, and compassionate. I really care about the planet. I am broken up by what's happening in the Middle East, and the videos I've seen have been horrible. Unacceptable. Treating children and dead bodies like garbage. That's unacceptable. So, in the final analysis, at that level, I have a heart, and I work from the heart, regardless of what anybody else says. I'm a heart spirit, so broken now, but happy that I have my music and friends like you. Incarna, appreciate it.
Good luck tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So much.
Okay, perfect. And if you could just introduce yourself first.
Sure. I'm Ant Law. I'm a London-based guitarist and band leader.
You're a London-based guitarist. So when did you first realize that you wanted to be a guitarist, and specifically a jazz guitarist at that?
Wow. Well, I think when I first saw footage of people like Slash and maybe Brian May and also Stevie Ray Vaughan, an electric blues player, I immediately thought, that's amazing, and I want to do that. And then as I got a bit older, you start to think, okay, I need to kind of get a job or make a living. So, I don't know, I guess I'm still just kind of figuring that out, really. But my experience playing in rock bands and things, you have to play the same songs every time, you know. But with jazz, you really can, and indeed you must vary what you're playing every single time. So I think when I sort of discovered jazz, I was about 18. And then I was kind of immediately hooked, you know. The instrumental bits in rock songs were always my favorite bits. And then in jazz, it was just the instrumentals. So,
Do you find it...
do you want me to look at the camera, by the way?
No, look at me, it's fine. I mean, without degrading a rock guitarist, do you think that being a jazz guitarist is a harder gig?
Well, maybe being a rock guitarist is a harder gig because there's less musical freedom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would say that... I mean, I think improvisation is very, very creatively fulfilling and challenging. And honestly, I would say that. It's just my opinion, you know. There are certainly challenges, much like those a classical musician has, breathing life night after night in a concert hall into a piece from hundreds of years ago, you know. That's very challenging as well. But I think it really is the spontaneous creativity in jazz that I find so appealing.
Okay. And the band that you are a leader of, how long has it been going for? If you could go into the title of your band as well, I noticed that there was a Murakami connection or something.
Yeah. I love stories, you know, books and whatnot, and I've been a fan of Murakami, Haruki Murakami, a Japanese author, for the benefit of anyone that didn't know that already. And at the end of Sputnik Sweetheart, which is, I mean, a lot of his books are quite strange, and I think that's what much of his audience know and love, and I'm no exception. But Sputnik Sweetheart was quite weird even for him. But I think it was almost on the last page. There's this beautiful quote about us all being connected and staring at the same moon in the same world. And Alex and I really enjoyed that quote. Alex Hitchcock, I should say, he's the other leader of this band, and this band is called Same Moon in the Same World. And Alex and I started this project when we were locked at home, you know, and we couldn't even play music together, but we could play music and send the recordings around the globe. So we did, and it felt appropriate, you know, like we're all in our different countries, different time zones, but, you know, yet we're still connected somehow, and we were trying to remain connected. So that's what Same Moon in the Same World, that's what the title is about.
Just going into that, it seemed like the pandemic was kind of hard for everyone who wasn't an artist, and those who were kind of lapped it up in many ways. You had so much free time, effectively.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. I mean, it's very strange to pivot from maybe performing, which is what we were doing a lot of, like, you know, every night before, to not performing, but certainly as a musician you can record, or you can write, or you can practice, you can develop ideas, and so on, like you say. I think it probably varies from musician to musician, but for me it was a very fertile period. I consider myself extremely lucky. I was at home basically with my wife. She was working from home, and I was able to invest in some recording gear so I could record little bits and bobs, and like I was saying, send things around to Alex or you know, people in Tel Aviv or Amsterdam or all around the world. But yeah, so it was certainly a fertile time for me. I know that it's not the same for everyone, but yeah, I was lucky.
So now at the Lower Third, as part of the London Jazz Festival,
Yeah.
How happy are you with where this project has come to up until now?
It's been amazing, and what's been the most amazing thing has been taking the project from being a recording project to performing live, which is what we're doing tonight. And of course having guests like, for example, Jeff Ballard, an amazing drummer. He's on 2 of the tracks on the album, and we were able to do a big tour with him that we may never have been ambitious enough to pull off, or even to ask him about, if it weren't for doing the recording project to start off with. So it's been amazing to begin touring, and that's what we're doing tonight. We have a number of dates throughout next year. Alex and I are working on the tour booking now, which involves sending a lot of emails. But yeah, that's been great, and it's always lovely to play at London Jazz Festival. London is so full of jazz the whole year through. But what's lovely about the festival is it gets a little bit of engagement from outside the normal jazz audience. So yeah, looking forward to playing to some new friends tonight.
Brilliant. And as we are at the 2023 London Jazz Festival, where do you see the future of jazz going? That is a question that has been framed to kind of jazz artists as long as they've been going, you know,
Yeah.
the age-old, is jazz dead, blah, blah, blah. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you have to say about that?
Wow. Well, I think people talk about jazz coming in waves, and I think any kind of hook or story you can apply that's going to help you write an article or tell people about something that's happening in the jazz world, or in your perception of it, is a good thing. But jazz seems to just carry on, no matter what's going on, you know, whether it's really popular or not. I mean, it's kind of like an underground thing that's just always happening. So yeah, I got no idea where jazz is going, but it's definitely going there, and it's definitely going somewhere. It's going to lots of places at the same time, and you sometimes see people maybe on social media discussing, shall we say, why certain artists like Snoop Dogg or someone like that is appearing at a jazz festival, and clearly the parameters about what jazz is are important to some people. Now, I'm just a musician, so I'm just getting on with, you know, wobbling the air for people. That's literally all I have to do. So I don't worry too much about that stuff. But I think people will be debating those parameters until the end of time. But yeah, I don't know. It's going somewhere interesting. It always does.
It's just that it's becoming a new form of jazz, as it were.
I suppose so. Yeah,
adapting.
It's evolving. Yeah. And even artists who you might describe as being very very traditional or straight ahead, even that seems to kind of that style seems to distill itself into something that sounds straight ahead but contemporary. That's the end of that thought.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.